because we're into hour two, so now we're into the actual reacts. So this one I think should be kind of interesting because this is something I've been noticing in modern TV these days is it really feels like modern Hollywood is very much well. So means by that it's time. Let me get this off the screen because this is terrifying. Personally, there we go. That scream's kind of terrifying to me. Um, it very similar. Um, it's sort of like uh, uh you get these shows that are making deliberate jabs or digs at their own audience, basically calling their audience stupid, calling their audience misogynistic, calling their audience racist, whatever. They're making jabs at the very people that they want to watch their program. Um, so they're kind of being vicious towards their own audience. And then when said show doesn't do well, then they come out and blame the same audience. Oh, you didn't watch our show because you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're whatever. So spite is, you know, spite is basically that. It's jabbing at and hating on your own audience in this particular case.
Dear HBO Max, I just learned you intend to make a genre-bending comedic origin story of Judy Jetson. When I heard this new version of Judy Jetson wouldn't be boy crazy, the only word I had to describe my disgust is jinkies. If there is one thing the internet agrees on, it's that you should never change anything ever. I hope you die. Sincerely, Velma.
That was a clip from the first teaser trailer for Velma last year. I think they were trying to get in front of whatever backlash they thought they would receive, but
They were, I think what they were trying to do with Velma is they were trying to be meta and failing miserably. Velma, I don't know if anyone here watched the Velma show. I did not. I had zero interest in seeing that show. It looked horrible. And from all the reviews I heard, it was horrible. It was, yeah, it looked like absolute ass. This, they, they, so this is where like it felt like a show made out of spite. It it 100% felt like a show that was made specifically to beat the audience over the head with the notion of you are bad and you should feel bad. Not not we are a show, our job is to entertain you in some way. It's no, you're bad and you should feel that. And that's not how this works. That's not how entertainment works. And somebody needs, somebody forgot to give someone a memo about that. And that's why this became the worst rated animated show ever. And by the way, this is after HBO because this was broadcast on HBO, HBO streaming service. I think it was HBO or Paramount, I forget which. They also touted when it first came out that Zelma was the highest rated animated program on their streaming service. Quite ca- quite conveniently neglecting the part that Velma was their only animated program on their streaming service. How convenient.
it didn't really work out for them in the long run. But I think this attitude speaks to a wider problem when it comes to entertainment pretty much across the board, at least in my opinion, which is spite. Basically, they know they're going to upset people, and not only do they not care, in some cases they're actively leaning into it, because they're assuming the backlash will get them attention, just like the old "there is no bad publicity" line.
We know everything, thanks.
And you know nothing? It's a shame you're not a woman anymore. Because you'd have understood.
Something a male-presenting Time Lord will never understand.
But I think this approach.
I hated that when they did that in Doctor Who. Like, when Jodie Whittaker took over as the Doctor on Doctor Who, Chris Chibnall took over as the showrunner. I actually gave the show a chance for one season. Bearing in mind, I was a huge Doctor Who fan to that point. I watched Doctor Who. I'd watched everything from Chris Eccleston's run all the way through. Uh, um, um, oh my God, I can't believe his name is escaping me. Um, the most recent doc. It's gonna come back to me in a second here. I know it. Um, but when Jodie Whittaker took over as the Doctor, I actually was like, okay, this could be interesting. Let's see what they're gonna do with it. And after the first season, I was like, yeah, no, I'm out. I'm done. Especially with the Timeless Child episode, where they basically completely ruined the entire history and lore of the character, and it only got worse from there. The I basically at that point I said I'm done with Doctor Who. I'm done with this. It's over. The show is dead to me. The one time I came back was for those three episode specials where David Tennant returned as the Doctor. Those I wanted to see, and those I saw. And the first episode was okay. Wasn't great. It was nice seeing David Tennant as the Doctor again. He kind of was, the Doctor again. Although there were a few of those moments that were just like, you had to stick that in there, didn't you? Overall, it was okay. Second special with David Tennant, I thought was great. I thought it was okay. We are in a return to form for the Doctor. This felt like a classic David Tennant, Catherine Tate, Who episode of a mystery with some horror elements into it. I thought it was great. I thought that episode was by far the best out of the three specials and the best Doctor Who episode that they probably had released in years by that point. And then the third episode comes around and it's like, are you kidding me? That scene that they just showed where Donna and her transgender daughter, Rose, uh, where they basically talk down to the Doctor because he's a man. And of course they had to throw in that dig of a male presenting Time Lord. I was like, oh my God, what the fuck are you doing? You had all of this goodwill with fans, with David Tennant coming back. You were already tenuous with the first episode. You already had fans that were willing to come back because of David Tennant. And on the first episode, they were going, okay, I'm not sure about this. Then you had the second episode, which was like, okay, we're back. This is Doctor Who. And then you did this third episode. It's like, nope, I'm up. I'm there. Which is exactly what I did. I was out. I was not even willing after that. No chance was I going to be watching the new episodes that came out afterwards with the new Doctor, because this new one they're rebooting it as like as series one again. They're trying to reboot it, saying this is the real Doctor now. So yeah, that is the perfect example of spite, especially with those instances where you had characters talking down to the Doctor, specifically because he was a man and that he's quote unquote male presenting. That was spite by people in the SJA community, of which Russell T Davies is firmly in that camp. He wasn't so much on his original one in the series. When he came back, he's letting that flag fly now, proudly, that he's an SJA. And they they he was making it clear. They were making it clear in that episode that They only want people that believe the same things that they do to watch their show. I'm pretty sure that the current doctor, the actor playing current doctor, actually even told people, like made a statement, like if you don't like what we're doing, go outside and touch grass. And people are. And the show is seeing its worst ratings either in many years or in its history. I'm not sure which it is, but the ratings for Doctor Who right now are utterly abysmal because they are catering to one demographic hard, and they're telling anyone not in that demographic, we don't want you. Go away. And when they do, they're crying out, well, why are you going away? Are you racist? Are you it? Are you this ist? Are you this phobe? Why are you going away? You have to watch our show, otherwise you're a bad person. And that is spite. That is spite, and that's similar to that's similar to the Velma thing, because they race swap Velma, they race swap Shaggy. Scooby Doo himself is nowhere in this show, and they're doing it out of spite. They're doing it because they hate the original core audience of the show, and they're basically telling the audience that might actually be interested in watching the show, we don't want you. We don't want you. Go away. And then calling them racist or whatever else when they don't watch the show. It's that it's this is the complaint that I've mentioned before. There's nothing wrong with putting diversity into TV at Ville. There's nothing wrong with having a non-straight white parentheses male character being the lead in your program or in your movie. The problem comes is when you try and shove this quote unquote diversity down people's throats and say, you will like this. You will like our show because of this XYZ diversing reason, or you're a horrible person. That's where there's a problem. Disney. Perfect. Yes. Absolutely, Wagyu. Perfect example is Disney. They've been doing it for years, where they're shoving diversity down people's throats and saying, this is the way it is. You are going to like this. If you have any problem with this, if your opinion sways from anything other than absolute adoration, you are a horrible person and you should be ostracized for it. And people are not taking it. People are going, okay, well, you want to act like that? I don't need to give you my money. And that's why you're seeing such a severe decline in profits in Hollywood. It's why Marvel has failed to actually make a decent profit on anything and has actually taken why Disney itself has not been able to make a profit and has actually taken significant losses on just about everything they've released for the last 5 years. Disney, I don't think, has made a profit on any of their projects, with one exception being Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think that one did okay, just okay. Everything else that Disney has put out in the last roughly 5 years, I don't think has made a profit or has taken a significant loss. And I think maybe they're starting to realize that that's why Deadpool 3 is greenlit. That's why Ryan Reynolds, from the looks of it, retained a lot of creative control and why that's probably going to be a good movie. But again, it's Disney spiting its audience to cater to a very minor demographic in the television and movie viewing community. They cater to about 5% or less of their audience and and basically told the remaining 95% or so, you are wrong, you are bad, and you should feel bad. And people said, okay, you don't need my money. Have fun.
Approach to content creation is a mistake, and there's a lot of examples of this kind of marketing backfiring. Ultimately, a lot of this does boil down to politics. For a long time now, there's been an effort to push things like diversity, equity, and inclusion in modern media, both from individual activists and also big companies behind the scenes.
And this right here, that right there, is what's killing the entertainment industry, and probably what is killing the gaming industry too. This right here. And this is actually evolving. Um, and Kirsche spoke very extensively on this. And I strongly recommend you go check out her videos on YouTube where she talks about it. It's called Brinch, and it's about basically injecting DEI into everything. They're going to try to, it's an attempt to try and inject DEI into literally everything now. And that should fucking scare you.
Like BlackRock, which state as much on their website, but unfortunately the way they handle these messages tend to be very heavy-handed, and they often insist that long-existing IPs need to be updated for modern audiences, or even that they have to fix these original properties because they have harmful messages. Everything from Star Wars to the Disney Princess franchise, and in my opinion, oftentimes
Yeah, that's why nobody's going to be going to see the new Snow White movie when it finally comes out, I think next year. I think it got pushed to 2025. No one's going to see it because dumbass Rachel Zegler went on camera multiple times and said, "Oh, Snow, this isn't 1935 anymore. This isn't the Snow White that your grandparents, your parents, and possibly even you grew up with. She's going to be the quote unquote strong female character. She's going to be a fucking girl boss." Because she actually said in her interview, she doesn't need the prince. She's not thinking about the prince. She's thinking about how can she can be a strong leader for her people. That's not Snow White. Oh yeah, yes, they've been doing it for every live action. We saw it with the Little Mermaid when they live actioned it, along with, of course, a race change because DEI, they had to race change Ariel. God forbid they have a fair-skinned redhead mermaid like in the original movie or even in the original Fable, mind you. No, God forbid you have a fair-skinned redhead. No, has to be a black girl with brains. Uh, and I mean, this is not throwing shade at the actress herself. Um, she's an actress. She's an actor and a very talented singer, from what I hear. Um, and she auditioned for the role. Why not? And she was selected. And she's did her job, and she got paid for it. I'm throwing no shade at her, but Disney was the ones that chose to have an African American in the titular role of in the titular role of a fair-skinned redhead mermaid. And it, again, this is forced DEI, forcing it down people's throats saying, you will like this. You have no choice because if you don't, you're a racist. And like, what's so funny is um, um, Halle Bailey, the actress, when she was doing like a press tour, she went to, I can't remember if it was Mexico or Mexico or South America. It was it was a Latin country, like a Latin country of some sort, Latin or Spanish speaking country, south of the United States. But I can't remember exactly which, if it was Mexico or somewhere in South America. And she went on like like a morning show or something like that. And what the Bale co-host said to her that when he heard her singing, he didn't even notice the color of her skin. He was hearing the angelic quality of her voice. Now, to you, to any normal, rational thinking human being, that would be considered a compliment that This young lady's voice, her singing voice, transcended something as trivial as a person's skin color. Halle Bailey later took offense to this and said she would, something to the effect of she would no longer do something like unscripted interviews or interviews where she didn't have the questions at a time because she refused to be put into that kind of like uncomfortable situation. And it's like, okay, so now you're proving just how thin-skinned you are and the fact that you have to be perpetually offended by everything. Being offended is your identity at this point. And that's what we're seeing. And that's the spite. And it's, Disney especially, they are they're raiding their vaults, and because Disney has lost all sense of imagination creativity. Disney is no longer a company that knows how to be creative or how to be inventive. Uh, no, I didn't. Is there? They're doing Disney's doing a Romeo and Juliet. Hang on, hang on. I want to see this. Nope, that's the old one. That's the old. Ah, here we go. Okay, let's go to IMDb. Okay, hang on. Okay, so we got Tom Holland as Romeo. Okay, okay. And then, yeah, like, holy crap. Uh, uh, yeah. So they're replacing one, two, three, at least four of the cast members with African American people. Likely more. Yeah, because he was in a short called Being Black. Uh, yeah, yeah, it is we're seeing forced. What did it even, was it one star? Did it even come out yet? Did it even? Well, hang on. Hang on. When did it come out? When was its release date? Has it actually released yet? Did it already release? Hang on. Okay, it's not okay. It hasn't released. So don't trust this. Do not trust this. If the film hasn't even been released yet, this cannot be trusted because how many ratings have we talked? This right here is strictly no. You can't because the I don't think any movie, no movie, should be prejudged on its performance in this way before it's even released. Because you know what? You can be upset about the fact that that Hollywood is race swapping and gender swapping movies, characters in movies. I'm not happy about that either. I dislike that greatly either. But if the movie has not even been released, then judging a film based solely no, it's not. It no, it is flat out not a fair rating because the movie has not been released. You cannot judge a movie based solely on who has been cast in the roles. You cannot do that. That is a completely unfair metric. Completely unfair metric. Because there have been plenty of movies where the casting of a role was highly frowned upon. And the public said, this movie's going to suck because of who you've got cast into the role. And when the movie released, the person that they thought was horrible did a fantastic job. Two perfect examples I can think of that. Michael Keaton as Batman and Heath Ledger as the Joker. When Michael Keaton was first announced as being cast in the role of Batman, people went, are you kidding me? This is going to be horrible, because they only knew of him as sort of a comedic actor from movies like Multiplicity and and Beetlejuice. He had never done a serious role like this before. So everybody assumed that the movie was going to bomb, that it was going to be terrible, that they should never have cast him for the role. Batman comes out, and it's one of the best superhero films of all time. It is one of the most beloved superhero films of all time because Michael Keaton knocked it out of the park. He did a fantastic job. Heath Ledger, when it was announced he was cast as the Joker, up to that point, he was viewed strictly as like a pretty boy. And he did a few things like 10 Things I Hate About You, which was like a teen comedy sort of thing where he played the heartthrob, or when he was in A Knight's Tale, where it was it was a mix of, you know, some drama, but also comedy as well. And they immediately, people said, this is going to be terrible. He is going to do terrible in this role. He should never have been cast. And you know what? Next to Mark Hamill, Heath Ledger, in my opinion, is probably one of the greatest portrayals of the Joker that we have ever seen, at least up to this point. Mark Hamill will forever and always be the number one representation of the Joker. I don't think anyone can ever top Mark Hamill as Joker. But you know what? Heath Ledger came real damn close. Real close. His characterization of the Joker was utterly phenomenal. And I've yet to see anyone in live action do better than him. So, judging a film based strictly upon its cast before the movie has even released. No, I disagree with that. 100% I disagree with that. You can be upset and annoyed that they've race swapped the majority of the cast to be black, when this is an English Shakespearean story, and of course all the roles were actually, in this case, Italian, not even English, Italian, and that they replaced the vast majority of them with black people. I won't disparage anyone for being upset by this. I understand the gut reaction of, you're taking, again, a Shakespearean tale, and instead of putting Italian actors into it, for God's sake, you're making all of them black. I understand the anger for that. And I'm not going to disparage anyone for it. I find it annoying too that they're constantly doing this. They are race swapping everything into, they have to be black. I understand that. But I'm not going to say this is a bad movie based on that alone, with it having not even been released yet. Because by by saying by doing this based solely upon the fact that the cast is black, that's racism. 100%. That is racism right there. Now, if the movie releases and it is a bad movie, it is written poorly, it is acted poorly, it is shot poorly, any combination of all of the above, okay, then it's a bad movie. Base the rating of the movie upon the completed project, and if the completed project is good or not. Do not base whether a movie is good or not solely on the color of a person's skin, because that actually is racism. And I don't tolerate racism. So, Wagyu, I'm going to tell you right now, if you are being serious, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say that you're joking. If you are being serious, that you think that this movie should be rated as a 1 out of 10 based solely on the fact that the cast is black, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable to me. Base it upon it for merit, not because of skin. You could be upset that the whole DEI thing is being shoved down people's throats and that casting may be skewed in a way that it's favoring people of non-white ethnicities. I understand that. I completely understand that. I won't disparage anyone for it, but don't review bomb a movie that hasn't even come out yet based upon who was cast. Because now you are doing a severe disservice to the actors, to the production staff, to the director, to the editors, all of them. You're doing a severe disservice because you're not even giving it a chance. And you're only basing it on the color of the skin, and that is simply unacceptable. Base it, base the rating on merit, not because of the color of the skin. If it's a bad movie, it's a bad movie. So be it. We've had plenty, and we will continue to have plenty. But base it upon merit above all other things.
This criticism just isn't really fair. We made a video defending Disney princesses 5 years ago, and that video is still relevant today. But this attitude has still been persistent in the media, and oftentimes if people question their decisions, they just get really smug. Like the Velma example from the beginning of the video. We also saw this a while back with a creator named Kelly Sue DeConnick, who very infamously said that anyone who doesn't like her politics just shouldn't buy her book.
And if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Problem solved.
I understand having a target audience
And I'm guessing people probably didn't buy her book, and then she whined and cried that people didn't buy her book.
in mind, and people outside of that target audience might have trouble finding enjoyment in it, but the amount of smugness and spite does not read well. It's like they make projects with an anti-audience in mind. It's almost like they're excited to annoy people, so instead of telling a story because they're passionate about it, they're mostly just doing it out of spite. And they're hoping that this new audience that will come and support them will also point at laughing the old audience that they chased away. And it's something that we see over and over again. I don't think political themes are inherently the problem here, because you can have stories with strong political themes that resonate with audiences. It's just that those themes have to serve the story, instead of just being there to stick it to the audience. For example, Static Shock is very well remembered, and that show dealt with a lot of political themes, like racism, homelessness, and even school shootings, but these topics were handled with a level of nuance, and the stories they tell are grounded. But unfortunately, that's something that
And that's the key, is these stories involving societal issues like race, like homophobia, violence in schools. You can have them in your stories if they're handled well, but if you're putting them in the stories just so you can make a societal or political statement, that's when you lose the audience, and that's where the problem really comes into play these days. Is writers and other creative staff involved in TV and movie don't know how to be subtle, I guess is the correct word. They only know how to shove something in your face. They can't write a story where one of these issues may be involved, and there's a portion of the story involving it where they have to work on it. Well, yeah, it's inclusivity to the point that it always has to be front and center, and it is the defining characteristic of a show, a movie, or a character. And that's where you're losing your audience. Is a character when a character is of a certain ethnicity or race, or of a certain sexual orientation, something like that. If that is their only defining characteristic, you've written a bad character. That can't be their only defining characteristic because now you've lost your audience. Because now they don't care. Uh, the audiences these days, they've had so much DEI crammed down their throats in popular media that having a character whose only defining trait is this DEI issue is boring and preachy. Nobody wants that. You know, you can, if you have, I'll throw out an example. I'll just throw out a hypothetical. If you have a Marvel superhero, this is completely made up. I'm not aware of any Marvel superhero who is this. So this is completely made up. If you have a new superhero in Marvel, who happens to be, let's go with transgender. You have the Marvel superhero who happens to be transgender. And that part of this character is, for the most part, somewhat in the background. It's there, and the issue may come up at times. You may have a situation where this character is tried to, where you talk about the character's dating life or something like that, or something having to do with medical needs, and that comes up. That's fine, but you can't just have this character have their defining trait as they are transgender and the superhero part and how they feel about what they do and who they are as a person beyond being transgender not existing. Because now you do not have an interesting character. You just have a social ideal in character form. And no one wants that. No one cares about that. And that's what is happening in modern day Hollywood is they're making characters that are the embodiment of a SJA issue and nothing more than that. They don't have any other defining characteristics other than this singular SJA attribute. And that's why Hollywood is failing. Because they're not writing interesting stories anymore. Stop making, you know, yep, wait, stop making these movies where the black character is special literally because they're black and that's it. Or stop taking these more historical stories and changing the character's ethnicity to be black just so you could say, look, we have a black person, or we have a Latino person, or we have insert any other non-white ethnicity here in our movie. There are thousands upon thousands of stories in non-white cultures that is a literal treasure trove for even a decent writer to come up with a good story for a movie. Exactly. Exactly. No, and Wagyu, you're absolutely correct. When you say they keep changing the existing characters for inclusivity, they should just create new characters. 100% correct. I've been saying the exact same thing for years. And that's what I was just talking about. There are thousands upon thousands of stories in a variety of non-white cultures that are just ripe for any decent writer to come up with a script for Hollywood. Like, think of how many stories you could come up with involving African lore or Italian lore or, you know, what's that one? Yeah, I just had it. Like some of the lore that you might find in Brazil or Colombia, in the South American region, or even like the Innu population. Uh, there's like every culture has a very rich history of mythical and fantastical stories that you can mine. But now Hollywood is co-opting existing stories just so they can shove ethnically diverse characters into it and claim, look how wonderful we are. We changed the character from a white person into XYZ. Or we changed the straight person into XYZ. Perfect example. Perfect example of this where this was done with deliberate, spiteful intentions was the failed Fantastic Four movie where where not only were Sue Storm and Johnny Storm not related, Sue Storm was adopted, but they changed Johnny Storm into from a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy into a black guy. No reason for that other than they want to go, look how inclusive we are. We, you know, this team, this superhero team was all white people. We can't have that. One of them has to be a black person. Look how inclusive we are. That's that's not going to bring in your audience. That's going to drive your audience away. Because the people that were fans of the Fantastic Four are going to take one look at that and go, okay, you fucked this movie. By deliberately doing that, you fucked this movie. And this was exemplified when the movie actually released and did terrible because the movie itself was terrible. Because you know what? Michael B. Jordan is a very good actor. He did a fantastic job in Black Panther. He was very highly regarded for his role in Black Panther. The man is a good actor. But that movie, it already going in already had the chip stacked against it because of their casting choice. And then the movie itself, the way it was done, was just horrible. So this is what I was talking about earlier with casting Romeo and Juliet. Don't judge it based upon the color of the actor's skin, but I fully understand and appreciate how a studio is stacking the chips against them by the time it does release by casting it in this way. So two totally different things there. It's God. You don't want to prejudge it like in its entirety in the effect of giving a rating. But I also appreciate how now things are, is stacked against them for when it does release. People are going to be going in. You're going to have to work very hard to win people over afterwards because you've basically preloaded in a negative way.
That's been missing in these activist-driven shows. Most of the time, the characters end up being stereotypes or caricatures, even ones that we're
There it is.
supposed to be rooting for, but that's because they're not as important as the message that they're trying to push, and it just ends up being awkward and falling flat. Doctor Who recently shook things up by having a bi-generational doctor. They brought back David Tennant, probably for nostalgia bait, but anyway,
Oh, yes,
he's
they did.
now alongside the 15th Doctor.
They brought back David Tennant because this was a Hail Mary to get the massive amount of audience that they lost to come back. Doctor Who had lost a huge portion of their audience. They brought him back because they were trying to woo their audience back and say, look, it's David Tennant. You all love him. Come back, please, please, please. And it worked for 3 episodes, and then the ratings tanked afterwards.
Who was the first queer and black doctor, but the lead up to this series was again very spiteful and confrontational.
And again, what they just said, he's the first queer black doctor. And that has been his only defining trait when in all the marketing. That was his only defining trait, is that this doctor is black and he's gay. which one of those was never an issue with the doctor. There was never a question of whether the doctor's sexuality has not once in the entirety of the series history from when it began, his sexuality has been a non-starter. No one cared. They may have had one or two instances of quote unquote romance, but there was never a question of his sexuality because no one cared, because no one viewed the doctor as a quote unquote sexual character. His the beautiful thing about him is that didn't matter. What mattered was the passion that he had for life, for adventure, for you know, figuring things out. That was his defining characteristics. His sexuality, his skin color, even his gender meant nothing. It was that, when people thought of the doctor, they didn't think of the first thing they thought was not he was a white man. It's not the first thing they thought of. Is they thought of here's this time war who's impossibly smart, incredibly clever, who loves going on these adventures in this big blue box. And then when this new doctor came out, the that's all you heard of is he's black and he's gay. Those were his defining characteristics. And the Doctor Who audience, who they'd already lost a huge portion of with Jodie Whittaker because the way they handled her run, said, "Great, so you've incentivized me not to watch your show because I don't care."
There's already been a lot of drama surrounding Doctor Who, and this is just adding to it. They immediately come out with a rage-baiting post calling out straight white men, which they know is going to get a lot of pushback in this day and age, but that's what rage bait is for. They also made multiple statements about how if you don't like it, then don't watch it, only for the show to premiere with the lowest rating since it first premiered way back in the 60s. They were very adamant about the direction they wanted to go in, even though they did acknowledge they were getting backlash for it. Like Ncuti Gatwa, the actor who is playing the 15th Doctor, saying that he wanted to have a fight scene where he twerks a monster to death. That would certainly be a choice. It just comes off like a big spectacle, instead of taking the story more seriously. And you know how sci-fi nerds are. I say that with love, I'm one of them. This isn't even the first time they're talking about LGBT themes on the show. Back in 2005, they introduced a character named Captain Jack Harkness, who was openly bisexual and played by an openly gay actor, and that character
Jack Harkness wasn't bisexual. Jack Harkness was pansexual. Jack Harkness would fuck anything. And you know what? He's probably one of the most well-remembered, putting aside the actor, everything that happened with the actor, because apparently there were some things going on with the actor John during filming that have come to light. Putting all that aside, Jack Harkness is probably one of the most well-remembered and is a fan favorite because he was a great character. And the difference being pansexual kind of sort of was a part of his character in that he flirted with everything. And I do mean thing. He flirted with humans, he flirted with aliens. Pansexual essentially means you'll fuck anything. Not not just humans. Essential. You're good with aliens. You're good with robots. It doesn't matter. You'll basically fuck anything. And that was Jack Harkness. Uh, but at the same time, he was a good character because he was more than just that. It was his sexuality was like it was more than a quirk, but it wasn't all his character was. It made for some funny dialogue because every time, during David Tennant's run, when he was traveling with the Doctor for a time, every time he would say hello to a new character, he would say, "Hi, Captain Jack Harkness," and he kind of do it in that little way, like, "Hi," like the joey of "How you doing?" kind of thing. He would kind of give that vibe. So he would say, "Hi, Captain Jack Harkness," and the doctor would immediately go, "Stop that." And it was a joke. And it lasted for about 5 seconds, and they moved on. And Jack was also he was a very intelligent character. He was like a warrior, and you know he was more than just the sexuality, and that's what made him so memorable. Is the sexuality was a part of the overall whole, but there was more than just the sexuality, and that's what we're not seeing this day in this day and age.
Character was so popular, he got his own spin-off series called Torchwood.
He
It
did.
kind of comes off like when Disney kept saying that they were introducing the first gay character, and they did it like 7 times. Just
yeah.
saying. The last show I want to talk about is a show called Mr. Bircham. This show is from the Daily Wire, which makes conservative content. They feel very strongly that the media has been too left-leaning, so they decided to make their own show about the politics that they wanted to see.
I'm a vegan.
Holy crap, was that? Hang on.
So they decided to make their own show about
Wow. That's Roseanne Barr? Holy crap. I mean, number one, it looks like she's lost a significant amount of weight compared to the last time I saw her, which was some time ago. But, whew, I didn't even recognize her. I did not even recognize her, honestly. Wow.
what the politics that they wanted to see.
I'm a vegan.
And they came out of the gate insisting that they were going to be as offensive as possible, and how originally this show was pitched decades ago but no one wanted to pick it up because it would be too offensive to the wrong people. But the Daily Wire loves to be offensive to those people, so they were going to do it. Again, they come off as being extremely spiteful and more concerned with their anti-audience than their actual audience. The guy behind
Yeah, I mean, this is, and I've talked about this before. We're seeing two, we're seeing two extremes and no middle ground anymore. If you want to be a little offensive and sort of like push things a little bit, that's fine. But if you're making if you're making something like a show or a movie deliberately to piss off a section of your audience or society, you shouldn't make that. That's why they made She-Hulk. She-Hulk was made specifically to piss off the quote unquote trolls. And said trolls was their core audience. So they were making a show deliberately to piss off their core audience. Big shock, She-Hulk bombed harder than Fat Man and Little Boy. It's these extremes. They need to stop going to these extremes all the time. If you can move into that gray area, guarantee you, you're going to see a big improvement.
this show apparently worked on shows like Drawn Together and The Man Show, so I was initially expecting the show to be pretty edgy, but in the end the only thing offensive about it was how unfunny it was. This was probably the tamest adult show I've ever seen, but it was definitely cringe. This show was less South Park and more old man yells at cloud meme. It follows Mr. Bircham, who's basically a self-insert of the creator. He's even voiced by him. This show ends up making the same mistakes that Velma did, but at least it's an original property. That has to count for something. So on top of being overly spiteful in the marketing, this show is also another cringy self-insert fest. The same total lack of self-awareness, not having an actual fleshed out character with strengths and flaws, and just reveling in your own wish fulfillment. He even hired his crush to play his animated wife. And there's a scene where the character rants at a podium and everybody stands and claps. All the kids who hated him previously all of a sudden love him just out of nowhere. Meanwhile, his rival, this man-bun straw man for the left, is more times than not actually in the right. I'm not sure how they managed to mess this up. In the first episode, Mr. Bircham forces his class to come to his house on the weekend and tells them all to not tell their parents, which is a huge red flag. He makes them work on his deck, and for some reason, the only person concerned about this is the left-leaning straw man. And then in the second episode, the teachers ditch because it's Veterans Day, which makes no sense because they should have the day off at a public school.
Yeah.
Veterans Day is a federal holiday. Again, the only person who's concerned about this is the left-leaning straw man. It's like how in Velma, Fred ended up being the best character even though you weren't supposed to like him, but he was the only one that actually had a character arc, and you can't help but feel sorry for him considering all the child abuse. And in this show, the man bun guy ends up being the only character with common sense, despite the fact that he's supposed to be considered unreasonable. Literally the only thing I liked about this show was that Bertram has a stand.
This kind of makes me wonder if Adam Carolla, because I think that's who they said would create the show, it kind of makes me wonder if that was actually his intention, that he sold the show to the Daily Wire as being this hard conservative, fuck the liberals kind of show, but in reality, actually intended to show, like maybe that the extremes are bad. You know, I've never seen the show. I'm kind of only going on with what this review is talking about. It almost makes me think that the show is actually showing how having such an extreme viewpoint is bad, which would be interesting. That actually would be pretty interesting if that was the case. And it'd be kind of funny if it was, because that means Adam Carolla pulled one over on the Daily Wire, which is a hard right conservative kind of publication and company. Yeah, I don't think I've never heard of it either. I mean, it's being done by the Daily Wire, so the Daily Wire. I mean, they're not really exactly a mainstream production company. Um, I don't think it doesn't look like a Family Guy ripoff. It looks like I mean the art style actually kind of reminds me of Bob's Burgers a little bit at least. Because it's the I don't see this show being meta like Family Guy. Like Family Guy, a big part of that was the meta takes on it. I don't think that's what this was. This feels I don't know maybe more like Family Guy or not. Sorry, I said Family Guy. American Dad, or perhaps Bob's Burgers, some kind of mashup between the two of them. I don't know. Um, but I kind of wonder is Adam Carolla put this together to show how extremes of one and the other are bad, and pulled one over on the Daily Wire, and they just thought, hey, we're sticking it to the libs when it's actually supposed to be more of a commentary about how both of these extremes are not a good thing, and there's got to be common middle ground here somewhere.
Thermos, like the original one. That is so on brand. Shows like Mr. Bertram or Velma weren't created to entertain people first and foremost. They were created to entertain the people who made them, so they could make fun of people they don't like.
Yeah, I mean, Megan Kelly here, she is she was on Fox News. Pretty sure she got fired. Yeah, she was on Fox News. So yeah, but I mean, the Daily Wire, they are like they are basically an offshoot of Fox News, which obviously is. I think at one point they actually said that they can't be considered news. They should be considered entertainment because their quote unquote journalism is so grotesquely off on facts and is basically nothing but opinion. But that's a whole different thing. I just find it funny.
And pat themselves on the back for being smarter
Greg
and better
Cooper,
than
yeah,
everybody
she's
else.
also
And that
very
spite
far right.
really shows through in the writing, and it's not doing either show any favors.
I'm a heteronormative, cisgendered white male. For which I apologize.
Mr. Bertram often gets compared to Hank Hill from King of the Hill, another show that's told from a conservative.
Yeah, Hank Hill. There you go. It's that could be maybe what they were aiming for is more of a maybe a King of the Hill kind of thing.
Perspective, but that show is basically everything that this show wishes it was. Hank isn't obnoxious or unlikable, and he's actually pretty nuanced, something this show is desperately missing, and it's bombing in the ratings. Well deserved. Even conservatives are saying that it sucks. You're better off just watching King of the Hill, maybe even All in the Family if you're actually looking for something edgy. And that show was from 50 years ago. It's just really frustrating and kind of sad to see all this spite in the media. They had the opportunity to make great shows that entertain the audience, while also saying something meaningful, but instead they choose to do this. There's not really much passion here. It's mostly just pointing fingers. Criticism can get frustrating, but maybe you shouldn't feed the trolls, and instead focus on meaningful stories that would resonate with people.
It's not feeding the trolls, but I'm gonna let her finish because it's only 2 minutes. There's only like a minute and a half left. There's one thing that they could do here, and I'll say it in a minute.
I hope we'll see a shift away from this kind of content. I think it would be best, but that's my opinion. What do you guys think? Do you think spite is harming the current landscape of media? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to our members: Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Sam. To become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. If you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. And that part's free. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.